Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dropping Down from the Rafters podcast here on Toned In Entertainment. Now, we've been doing quite a few live podcasts here, but we've done a television show review, but we've never done a movie review. So this is a first one, and joining me here, who was also part of the television review, is Tyler Peters. How you doing, Tyler?
Tony, I am excited to join you, and I can't wait to review this film. So I've been looking forward to this for quite a long time.
It's true. We set this up a couple weeks ago, and with the holidays and everything that's crazy out there, finally getting together and doing this review. We're both huge wrestling fans. We're huge of wrestling fans of also of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s era as well too. So
right.
When I saw the Iron, movie was being made about the Von Erichs, the Iron Claw, I was like, I think this is the perfect subject matter for us to discuss here on the channel.
I think it's perfect. I'm glad you selected this topic, and with the film coming out, why not talk about it?
Now, of course, they promoted this film with the Von Erich, the tragedy, the curse. Is there a Von Erich curse?
Right.
That's kind of where all centered around, and we got to really see the lives of the Von Erich family, at least for the most part, through their kind of the beginnings to the tragedy that ended with Carrie Von Erich. What did you think about maybe kind of how they laid out the story of this film?
I thought they did a pretty good job. Everybody's going to probably nitpick on what's accurate and not so correct about the movie, but I felt like they did a pretty good job. Of course, I've heard a lot of people say this is what you can expect when Hollywood kind of does something about a wrestling family, but I thought overall, just for me, it was pretty good.
Yeah, there are some, major discrepancies. A few, there's videos out there that are saying,
Sure.
oh, this is what really happened. This what didn't really happen. Was there anything in this movie that, didn't happen that they put in the movie that maybe made you a little upset about it?
Well, Tony, the thing is, I don't know enough about world-class championship wrestling, the inner workings like the Von Erichs or people who were the talent there. And I wasn't a historian to have the right to say what is right or wrong. I just am going by what a lot of people are saying on their podcasts that were close to the situation, or even from Kevin Von Erich. The only thing he was saying was his dad wasn't betrayed. He got that it was going to be a little more entertaining to have Fritz betrayed as this kind of grumpier promoter that was always pushing his sons, which I can see. Yet Kevin wanted people to know that that wasn't an accurate description of the father, and there we see him. And I thought the actor did a fabulous job. I mean, they did compliment the acting. I mean, all this cast were superb and portraying these larger than life characters who in reality were such superior athletes. I mean, they just had the physiques, the way that Zac Efron had to train all these actors. I mean, they looked the part. They wrestled. Chavo Guerrero trained them. So that's the only thing I've been hearing. Of course, I know we watched that documentary that's on Peacock about the Von Erichs and world class, and I know we've touched on that. A lot of wrestlers gave their perspectives and how the booking was and how the family. So it's hard for me to really nitpick too much, but I did hear Kevin Von Erich, I think, say that Fritz was not betrayed close to how, they viewed him, which was interesting. I don't know, though.
Right, because in the movie, Fritz is an extremely very scary guy here in this movie.
No, he is.
You
Yeah,
know,
very intimidating. Yeah.
because we get to see him, through the times at the table, at the dinner table, and whether it's promoting, and then him even having a list of like who his favorite sons were, and he even said, like Kevin's my favorite, then followed by Carrie, and then David, and then Mike in that order, and you know. Whether that was for entertainment purposes or not, I've heard that's kind of like, as far as my research goes, that it kind of was accurate.
Well, and that's the thing. It could have been right. Maybe it was just hard for Kevin to see it played out again. Because Fritz, you got to think like Bill Watts, a lot of those old time promoters had to have an edge to him. I mean, they were former wrestlers themselves a lot of the times doing the booking. And Fritz, I didn't realize that he played favorites, but you're right. At the dinner table, he clearly was talking about, Kevin being the favorite, well, David in a certain order, and then Carrie and poor Chris and Mike. I mean, he doesn't even get mentioned in the film because I can relate to him. I mean, he wasn't the athlete his brothers were, and unfortunately for him, he had my problems. He didn't grow enough, so he could barely see over the top ropes. Bless his heart. But they didn't have him in there, which I found fascinating. They didn't at least have a part for him. But that's the thing. Even Chris had a hard time, even though he got involved. Fritz was not too keen on having him in the business. From what they betrayed, what do you think? That's just kind of the perspective I got watching that movie.
Yeah, I mean, he was scary. He was terrifying. I kind of feel like that's how it went down. I feel like back in those days, I mean, parents. Not, I mean, do parents have their favorites? Probably. And do some probably
Sure.
call them out? I could see that happen. It seemed like he was very competitive. And at least as far as the film goes, is what we should talk about is, that was his way of motivating them to be better than one another, to outdo them. Cause it was kind of like, well, the list can change at any time.
Yeah, very competitive to your point. I mean, he was wanting to see healthy competition to see who was going to step up and be a star, not just in a family group, but as a singles competitor. So very intriguing to say the least.
Now, a lot of the movie, I guess you could say Kevin would be the star of the show here in this movie. Cause
I
we
would
see
think so.
a lot of it, I mean, bless him, he is the survivor of the brothers, but we do get to see things like the wedding, and the brothers, interacting with each other, outside of the ring. Did you like the fact that they give us a little bit, maybe of a little personal touch of behind the scenes stuff here with them, other than just, stick with the wrestling?
I did because I think as much as we enjoy the wrestling side of things, you want to see kind of that personal side that you're alluding to. So I'm glad we saw how the wedding was and how Kevin Von Erich was with his own family outside of his brothers and that whole dynamic with Fritz and the mother. I mean, there was a lot of, and I know we'll get into it. I don't want to skip ahead too much. But that's a fascinating point. As the wedding, we got to see a lot of things kind of behind the scenes in their life, the way it was betrayed and described, or depicted at least in the film.
Now we do have Mosh Pit Messiah is in here in the chat as well. Welcome, Mosh Pit. If you have any thoughts or
Hey,
comments
Mosh
on
Pit.
the movie, definitely let us know down here in the comments. Now,
Absolutely.
as someone who's grown up and loved that era of wrestling, and I still go back to this day and like love to watch these old clips and I think they did a really good job of the fan reactions of the crowds in this movie, because let's face it, here now in 2024, we don't get pops and the energy like what we see here in the movie, where they were, taking on the Freebirds or any of the other cornucopia of wrestlers that were thrown in their way to kind of put them over. What did you think about maybe the whole choreographing of the wrestling? I know Chavo Guerrero had a big part. I'm hearing that he may actually do a Guerrero movie now. That was kind of the rumor I saw today
Oh,
is
wow.
that he may actually do an Eddie Guerrero or a Guerrero family movie now from this. But as far as like the wrestling scenes, I mean, which is, what we came for, what did you think about those?
I thought they were done very well because I could anticipate it a little bit as a fan just watching. Like he said, it captured that energy that you had in the territorial days with World Class Championship Wrestling, and you discovered that the Von Erichs were rock stars. You didn't need bands. You just had them. The family and the Freebirds were awesome. Introducing the music, Kevin Von Erich speaks about it. Michael Hayes. I love Bad Street USA. I love the whole Georgia Texas rivalry and these guys being disrespectful to these good old Texans and coming into their home area and setting the place on fire in a good way with that charismatic energy that's infectious. Michael Hayes, and then you had big Bam Bam, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts, and the way they choreographed. I mean, that's very true and appropriate because these guys just went to war and they tore the house down. I mean, the fans, that's what they live for. That's easily one of the top rivalries still talked about. No disrespect to all the other great feuds in world class, but that made their business go up so much more with the Freebirds and Von Erichs.
It's funny, the documentary that we actually watched on Peacock, like I guess the official WWE documentary, Michael Hayes is in it a lot, and with Buddy Roberts and Gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. And they say in the documentary that without the Freebirds, there is no Von Erichs, which is debatable, but at the same time believable in my opinion. But man, I kind of wish there was a little bit more Freebird backstory in this movie. I know it's 2 hours and 15 minutes long and you can't get to everything, but I feel like I wish we could have seen a little bit more Freebird stuff. And I'm not sure how accurate this is. I did see somebody post on Facebook that they played Iceman Parsons in the movie and they cut his scenes out in the movie. So it seems like possibly some stuff got left on the cutting room floor as far as the wrestling goes to feature maybe more on the family dynamic of the film.
It would be hard to fit all the chronological history to your point, Tony. And yeah, Iceman Parsons, we got to see Gino Hernandez and Bruiser Brody. We'll get to all that. I'm just, it's all kind of playing in our heads again as we're reviewing this film. And I tell you, the Freebirds, I'd like to see those vignettes going back to the documentary where you saw them like really filthy. I mean, they'd go to these bars where the Von Erichs are probably eating at these upstanding restaurants, and you got these guys at the bars, just demanding drinks, doing the villainous stuff that would be befitting of the Freebirds, and it was fantastic. That's what wrestling was about. That's what made you want to cheer. It's the basic story of good versus evil. I mean, even in wrestling.
Mosh Pit Messiah says, I have a lot to say about this movie, but he's happy observing the pros talk about it. Well, thank you. And we will take the pros compliment.
Thanks. I try. I don't know. Tony's the pro. I'm here. I don't know.
Tyler's the knowledgeable one. I'm just here for the entertainment value. Tyler's got the knowledge here. And then
you sell yourself too short, Tony. You're very talented.
I appreciate it. And then Cherry Bomb says, I was surprised to know that there was another brother that died according to the movie. The first brother that died at a young age. Was it Chris Von Erich that was left out of the movie completely, I believe?
It was Chris, yeah. It was, yeah, and they never did add it to the movie. Maybe it was due to time, and because, with all due respect, it was about the others. Unfortunately, it overshadowed what happened to Chris, but another tragedy. I mean, he tried. He just, bless his heart, it looked like he was undersized. He was not as tall and didn't have that physical presence, which to be honest, Chris didn't even. I mean, he was a good athlete, but compared to Kerry and Kevin and even David, even though he didn't have the physique, he was, a lot of people said he was probably the best all around wrestler was David Von Erich.
Yeah, I was going to say, the movie clocked in at like 2:15. So it's a shame that, some stuff gets left out of the movie that you feel is important. You feel like maybe they could have fit it in there, but at some points, we have to go back to the fact that it is Hollywood and it is a movie, and you kind of have to take everything with what they can deliver, in the time period.
Oh, we do. And we have to understand it. Even Kevin Von Erich made that known. Like it's going to have some Hollywood with it, even though he did praise the acting. He thought Kevin Von Erich, I mean, not well, Zac Efron, who played Kevin Von Erich. See, yeah, he played Kevin Von Erich so well that I'm even calling Zac Efron Kevin Von Erich, which is funny. But it's appropriate, and that's what he was saying. He was praising Zac Efron's performance, his physical conditioning. I mean, from what those guys were saying, Tony, they respected wrestling even more now, knowing the training, the work that goes into it. So I found that very cool on behalf of the cast.
What did you think about the casting of the movie? I was watching a talk show, and they had the actor that played Kerry Von Erich on there, which is right here. And he said that the director had called him up, or the writer, and was like, "Hey, I want you to be in this film about, wrestlers, and this is the guy that you're going to play." And of course, then they showed him like a jack picture of Kerry Von Erich, which let's face it, I mean, Kerry was kind of the stud, in my opinion, as far as the physique, the hair, the
girl screaming.
The girls seemed to go crazy for all the Von Erichs back in the day.
Yeah, they did. Actually, it didn't matter. They were saying they were kissing them and everything. It must be nice. I mean, it was good. I mean, they were just, but that's for another topic. But yeah, going back to the Kerry Von Erich, I mean, I thought the guy did great. The body transformation. I mean, you're right. Kerry was a stud, man. He almost made it to the Olympics through discus, and I think Jimmy Carter. See, that's what was compelling to me. A lot of the backstory I didn't know that was also in the film that I was glad they included. I think was essential to the overall story of the Iron Claw.
Now, was there any parts of the movie for you that just didn't work for you at all?
Yeah, and it's going to seem like a popular one, Ric Flair. That did not set well with me, and I thought the actor tried his best, but come on, if you're going to be the Nature Boy, get somebody with more charisma, more energy. I mean, even his woos were off. I mean, it just didn't have the same feeling, and I hate to say it. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you're going to be Nature Boy, Ric Flair, you've got to be styling and profiling. That guy did make me think he's going to Holiday Inn, even though he said it in the movie. I thought, where did this just doesn't do it for me. I'm even at a loss for words. You got to have somebody that can do that part.
Mosh Pit says, I think they did Ric Flair like that on purpose.
They could have.
Yeah, it was interesting because throughout the entire movie, like, I'm sucked into the movie, right? I'm in this world. I'm engulfed in it. Like, for me, I do have a short attention span. So for me, for a 2-hour and 15-minute movie in a theater, it's hard for me sometimes to be fully engulfed in a movie, and this one did. But when Ric Flair came on screen, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, my wife and I just started laughing during the movie because it just did not work. I'm trying to be as nice as possible, but it didn't work. It felt comical. Too. Yeah.
It did. It felt like, okay, I'm going to play some kind of version of Ric Flair, but it's not going to be nowhere near as close. I think the guy tried, and he was a good actor, but it just didn't resonate if you're going to be Ric Flair and be true to the movie. Now, like Mosh Pit was saying, could it have been a rib a little bit because it was Ric Flair? I don't know. I would hope not. I think they just tried to cast the role as best they could.
Well, Ric Flair always says, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And unfortunately, nobody has beat the man because Ric Flair will still be Ric Flair after this.
He's always going to be the man. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the day that comes when they make the Ric Flair movie, they're going to have to look just a little bit harder to pull off a proper Nature Boy for a film about Mr. Styling profiling.
And to be fair, Tony, it would be hard for anybody to actually properly betray Ric Flair. So that may have been the conundrum they got themselves in, trying to get somebody to be Ric Flair.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that responsibility. That's too big of a cross to bear.
Now, it's too much for me, I'll tell you.
Now, throughout the movie, we do get to see, there's just some cool stuff. Like, I think they did everything great as far as like wardrobe choices go. Really giving it that gritty 80s look, from the promos backstage to them coming up to the Sportatorium here. What did you think about, like, did the movie pull you into that time period?
It did. I think I agree. They did a fabulous job of making me go back to the '80s with the sport of, the sport of, is it Terrium? I screwed that up, didn't I? What is the name of the building?
The Sportatorium.
Yeah, I screwed that up. I apologize, but they took you back to the that decade, that time, and everything, and leave it to me to mess up the name of the building. But some words are harder for me. I do good to speak English sometimes. That's my fault. But they did a great job with the with all the characters and getting you back in that time zone. Yeah, they really did.
Yeah, I think one of the major, I guess, sequences in time that is off is the Kerry Von Erich motorcycle accident here. That it actually, to my understanding, um, it was 2 years after he beat Ric Flair in real life, where we kind of see it happen leading up to the match for more dramatic effect. Any thoughts
Yeah.
on them using something like that to just build up dramatic effect for movie purposes when it was something that happened in real life, but just a different time period?
Yeah, I think it was just to add that drama to it because it was a pivotal point with Kerry Von Erich, losing his foot due to that motorcycle injury and the build up to facing Ric Flair. It was a very monumental point in his life, and also for the NWA and for world class championship wrestling, the Von Erich family. So I think that's all it was. But for cinema purposes, they were trying to build it a little more with the story, so it made sense.
Yeah, I think one of the other things was, at the end. I mean, we're going to talk spoilers. The movie's been out for 3 weeks now, so I would think most people who wanted to see it will see it. But at the end of the movie, again for dramatic effect, it's Kevin who finds Kerry Von Erich at the end after he had shot
No,
himself.
he does.
Right, and it's in what happened in real life. It was Fritz that came across his body. But let me tell you, like, if there's a tear jerky moment in the movie,
Oh
it's
my
definitely
gosh.
that one there.
Yeah, I had to fight back tears myself. It was very emotionally driven to that scene where, at least in the movie, Kevin discovers Carrie and then he chokes out Fritz. I don't know if that actually happened, but I think it was showing the frustrations of even Kevin. As much as he loved his dad, he was thinking, well, all the pressures of being the Von Erichs, it kind of came to a culmination of sorts.
So, from what we know of what happened in real life and, what we saw in this movie here, how do you feel, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, that the movie directors did justice to this movie, to the story of the Von Erichs?
I think they tried. I think they did the best they could, considering they were exploring doing a wrestling movie. But to their point of view, I think it's not just really a wrestling movie as it is more of a family drama because you're dealing with a Von Erich. So there's also that perspective that you have to look at sometimes. So that's what I've been hearing. To me, it's still a wrestling movie with a family drama, but I've also heard people say it's more of a family drama with wrestling. So it's very interesting. A lot of different takes on the matter.
Yeah, Zach Efron was on one of these talk shows in the morning a couple weeks ago, promoting the movie. And it feels like there's still a stigma around pro wrestling that is just kind of like meant for guys that live in their basements. The way that they said it, it's just kind of like, oh, so you did a pro wrestling movie. And like you said, at the end of the day, it's a drama, a family drama where pro wrestling is kind of like the storyline of the movie, essentially.
Correct.
And so, do you think that at any time in the near future that maybe the mainstream media will finally or eventually take pro wrestling movies like this? Because this isn't a comedy movie with The Rock running around or somebody. This was meant to be
True.
a real life story of a crazy. I mean, we lived through this era, at least some of the years we did in the 80s, where all this was happening or very familiar with it. and we knew how crazy it was, and it just kind of feels like it's this generalization through the media that pro wrestling stuff, no matter how real it actually is, it's still not taken seriously.
Yeah, I think more films like this will get the mainstream media, especially in Hollywood, to take these type of movies more seriously and not get categorized in more the comedy type philosophies like you were alluding to with The Rock. With all due respect to the great one, he's not made a serious wrestling movie. I'm sure when he does, it'll be fantastic. But we're talking about a family that for a long time believed they were cursed because of all these tragedies that were happening. Whether or not people believe that, I think some people, to a degree, started thinking, being superstitious. Well, hey, why is this all of a sudden happening to this famous family that are all these great athletes? It's not like they had too many health challenges. I mean, eventually they did, but as far as starting out, they all kept in great shape. And I mean, the way Fritz was pushing them, I mean, they were all stars. So at least for the most part, David, and we could agree with Kerry and Kevin and stuff, and even Chris to a certain point. So it's all very captivating. Would be a word that comes to mind. I would hope that Tony, we would see more of these kind of films taken seriously, and I want to see maybe some awards for this film because I think whether you agree with the way they depicted the story, the cast did a great job portraying these real life people and made you believe. I mean, like you said, the guy that played Fritz was very convincing. I mean, he had me. I mean, that first scene when it's black and white, I thought that was a cool effect. And when it was showing the Von Erichs as kids and getting the new car and you know, when he was putting that claw, I mean, that made us believe in wrestling, even though everybody knows it's scripted. Because when he put that claw on, he wasn't letting go. And I love how they got the close up camera shots and angles. I think that's what was beneficial for this film, The Iron Claw. And I want to apologize. I had a little lapse there because I promise you I know the building, but for some reason I was overthinking it. So thank God I've got Tony here. I got to admit, I'm just 37, but I have my moments. So hey, maybe you needed a good laugh. There you go.
There
So
we go. We all have our moments. It's okay, Tyler. Yeah, they did make sure that they got enough iron claws in this movie. I mean, they did show off
oh, they
that, which
did.
was nice. You know, it's kind of the theme and kind of what the film was based around.
Yeah,
But
it was.
so as far as like the characters go, I also thought, you mentioned like the actors that portrayed them. And I think other than the Ric Flair, I thought it was solid. The guys that played the Freebirds, all, although they didn't have like real speaking parts or anything like that, um, the way that they moved in the ring, the Michael Hayes, the Bam Bam Terry Gordy, we've seen so much of their footage. You really felt like these were the guys in the ring, the guys that played the Von Erich family. Also, really felt like, they not only did they do great casting, but they obviously took the role seriously of training and wrestling because, even though it's a movie, it still felt real. Like it could have come off as bad if they didn't have the proper choreographing with Chavo Guerrero. But I think everything from the casting I thought was A+, other than Flair, and the actual directing and the Chavo Guerrero stuff that he put into this movie was fantastic. And I know there's some rumors that there's supposed to be like a Hulk Hogan movie coming out. And I know when he was on with Chris Van Vliet, he said, "Hey, if anybody's going to do my wrestling scenes for the movie, it has to be Chavo Guerrero."
Oh, very cool. I didn't get to hear that part of it. I do remember Hogan doing the interview with him, and yeah, I don't know what's going to happen because who was it that was supposed to play Hulk Hogan? And I know we'll get back to the Iron
Was it
Claw
Thor,
movie
the guy that
review.
played Thor in the Marvel movies?
Yes, and it was. And goodness gracious, names are escaping me when I need to remember. Leave it to right when we need to do a podcast, and I just can't think of his name. But you're right. At least
Chris
he is
Helms,
Thor
right?
from
Chris
Marvel. We'll go
Helms
with that.
from Thor. Chris Helms.
Hemsworth. Yeah, Hemsworth. There you go. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, Mosh Pit Messiah says, "Yeah, my buddy and I were the only ones in the full theater cracking up when we saw Flair, probably because you guys know what Ric Flair is supposed to sound like. And yeah, I'm
Right.
telling you, my wife and I just looked
And
at each other and just giggled. And I'm like, I don't think we should be laughing here in the theater, but we did. Um,
yeah, I
and
gotta admit, I was cracking up a little bit. I was like, bless his heart, this just ain't Ric Flair, man. This ain't
no.
it.
And then Cherry Bomb says, to me, it was a great movie, a very sad story. The moment that broke me was when Kevin said that he used to be a brother, but I did love that they showed his big family now living together at the end. They kind of went to, like, I guess, heaven at the end of the movie. And that was a
He
powerful
did.
scene too, with them on the with Carrie on the rowboat coming into the pier and then reuniting with his family. Obviously Hollywood, but it was very powerful.
No, I agree. Talk about another tearjerker to see the brothers reunited in this heavenly scene, like you're talking about the rowboat with Carrie and seeing David and Chris, and then that little brother that passed away got electrocuted.
Right.
That was very powerful and moving. And I gotta admit, man, I try to be tough, but I'm still sensitive. I mean, at those moments, it'll get you. I was like, "Where's the tissues, man?" I'm like, this is deep," and you knew it would be, or it'd have to be at certain points of the film.
Yeah, Jack Jr. that drowned and got electrocuted, I believe it was, and he passed
No, you
away.
were correct. Yeah, very sad.
Yeah, Cherry Bombs even says, she cried. So yeah, it was a. I thought I guess it would be easy for us to say, oh well, they did this wrong, they did that wrong, but it was only a couple little things, and it is Hollywood. It wasn't a documentary. I have to keep telling myself that it's a biopic and not a documentary. And I think for me overall, I would probably give the movie a 9 out of 10. I thought it was very powerful. I thought it was really well done. It's not perfect because we've mentioned that there's a couple things here and there that you know
Sure.
weren't good. So I can't give it a 10 out of 10. But I think as a movie about a wrestling family, a very powerful and extremely popular wrestling family. I think they did a fantastic job in making this movie.
We did. I think everybody worked hard. I loved how you saw Chavo in the opening match. How he was actually one of the first people you see. Zac Efron's portrayal of Kevin Von Erich take on. I just can't say enough about how they cast the mom of the Von Erichs. They cast the wife Pam and how they met, going with the wedding, how she approached Kevin at one of the shows and with all those girls. But she was very persistent, and they're still together now. That's his wife still presently. So I love how that you kind of found out how they met. It's very neat.
It's like I see grown men are allowed to cry because Moshpit cried a lot. He says, "Thank God for hoodies."
Yeah, absolutely. Or then it's dark in the theater, so if nobody can really see you good enough. But I don't think I would have cared. I'm just like, hey, this is sad. It's
Yeah,
very tragic, and I'm not
ex-
meaning to laugh in a bad way. It's just I'm laughing because it would happen. I mean, this is seriously. I mean, it's a lot of very tragic stuff. So you're going to be emotional.
I think Skits is playing with my lights in the background again. Actually, I just bumped it.
Skits is
Skits
still
is back.
haunting your Tony's room. It's amazing. That was back and before Halloween around that season, and there's still hauntings going on. And
There's
I don't
still
know what
hauntings
it's all
going on
about.
here. We'll just leave it
Yeah,
there.
and we did the show, the Chamber of Horrors by WWE. Maybe that's got something else to do with it.
It
It's
could
it's
it could be
remarkable.
it could be my area is haunted, or I just need to put my remote control further away where I don't bump it. So it's just going
Well, it
techno.
may be the remote control. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, this was my next point, and Cherry Bombs does bring it up, and she says she was expecting to see some more of MJF in the movie because really all we see is kind of his thighs and his legs in the movie.
Yeah, we don't really get to see him, only very briefly, and we did hear maybe his scenes got cut, but he was instrumental in helping work with the guys, and he played Lance Von Erich, who a lot of people exposed that it was just a local guy that wrestled that they were trying to pass off as a Von Erich, and then in the documentary, Fritz has to deny it, and even Gary Hart said and a lot of the talent, it just was not a great idea. The guy had a great look. He was athletic, but a lot of people knew him locally. So they were already saying, that's not a Von Erich. I forgot his name, but not to be disrespectful, but that's so and so that played it. So they already knew even before being smart fans. I mean, that goes to show you they were onto it.
Yeah, I was like, you can't fool people in Texas at that time because they were
No,
saying
they take
at
it
that time
seriously.
it's all about football and wrestling, and he was a football
Right.
player, and they're like, no, we know this guy. He's coming. I would have liked to see a little of that because that is such a crazy story. That they were trying to add more Von Erichs to the fray. And you think MGF as executive producer or as executive producer, I believe, on this movie, that he would have got a little bit more screen time here in this as Lance. And I think I wish they could have intertwined that just a little bit here in this movie.
Incorporate it to your point
Right.
a little bit more at least. But like you said, maybe it's because of time. They had to cut a lot of. I'd like to get like maybe a bonus film, like how Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I've not seen it yet. It's been extended to 3 hours. Maybe they could do that with some of these films where you can get an extra version. I don't know how that would do any better for the film, but I mean, you could at least see maybe some of the bonus material, the scenes that got cut out.
Right. I guess that's why we still have to buy the physical DVDs at this point so we can get those deleted scenes and find out what went on there.
Oh, I know, but anymore, who knows? With all the streaming, that's becoming a thing of the past. I mean, even wrestling DVDs, WWE just announced they're not doing DVDs anymore. So I think pretty recently, they're starting to do away because everything's going digitally. So I understand, but it's a bummer because I love it. At least getting DVDs. Remember, videotapes was a big thing. Getting a
Yeah.
WrestleMania on VHS.
I actually saw somebody post a picture today from Best Buy, and they posted on Facebook, and they were like the end of an era, and it was like 5 DVDs left on this huge area that says physical
Oh
media.
man.
So yes, it's kind of going the way of the past, and Mosh Pit Sizes got to see a close up of the champ's butt, and that is true.
Well,
That
I'm sure all the women enjoyed that. I mean, I respect they got in shape, but I didn't need to see that close up of them. But I get it. Hey, it's part of wrestling. You get used to it. But that was interesting what he brought up. I did not actually think about it, but thank you, Mosh Pit.
actually that was one of the things that I saw was like they literally just showed his back end and his legs, and
Right.
I'm like, maybe he's like, hey, that's show it off. I've worked hard for it.
You might as well. If I was him and looked that good, I'd be doing the same. Hey, camera guy or lady, come here. Get a close up here. I'm gonna so these ladies in these theaters can get excited. There you go.
Now, Tyler, before you give your final thoughts on this, is there any other topics of this movie that you wanted to touch on?
It was interesting to see how the family, at least in the film, viewed Kerry going to WWF with Vince and
Okay.
being the Intercontinental Champion. Then how he came back and it was the gun that sadly is what he used to kill himself. I hate to even bring it up, but it was part of it. And to know that Fritz would let them shoot it, not blaming anybody. A lot of people would go out and just shoot their guns off, but you just didn't know the state and the demons these guys were battling with the drugs and everything. And it was just the culture, unfortunately, in all forms of entertainment, especially sports and wrestling. And it showed. And, even with Gino Hernandez, think about how much more of a star he was already established, but he could have went anywhere. He was a great heel, and to see how his life got cut very short. And the same thing with Carrie. It's just there was a lot of things in there that were dark and very deep, but had to be told for you to understand. And sometimes it's not easy for us to look at it. It's very awkward, but if we're going to be truthful, it's got to be described in the film. And I found that very fascinating. Because Kerry became the Texas Tornado. Now, Vince actually would say Kerry Von Erich a little bit because most of the time, if he owned the character, he didn't like to talk about the history. He wanted you to be new in his company, but he knew the Von Erichs. He respected them. I think there was a lot of times where he probably would have loved to have the Von Erichs when he was expanding because that was one of the territories and the way they looked, especially and could work. I'm sure he would have made a lot of money, and he did. with Kerry. Unfortunately, it was getting in the latter years of Kerry's career. But think about it. He faced Mr. Perfect. He had a lot of great rivalries. So, I mean, it was pretty cool seeing Von Erich in the WWF.
I was going to say, I remember when Kerry Von Erich joined the WWF at that time. And I actually like the fact that they said WWF in the movie as well, too. That,
Me as well.
Right, that they didn't have to say WWE. They said WWF because I believe in history. And, I know for legal reasons, WWE cannot say WWF. But I like the fact that, they did say WWF in this movie. And I remember Kerry Von Erich making it to the WWF at the time. And like you said, Vince likes to change a lot of people's characters and personas and make them themselves. And I like the fact that he was the Texas Tornado. I think is a fantastic nickname for him because of the spin around punch and, him being from Texas and tornadoes and everything else like that. I felt like that was a great moniker, but also being able to keep the Kerry Von Erich name as well too was very powerful and important because a lot of people, like you said, did not get to do that.
Yeah, it fit him. I couldn't agree more with you, Tony. It just because he represented Texas, and you're right, a tornado. He had the athleticism, so it actually, even though we look at it cartoony, because it was that era of wrestling, especially the WWF, it actually made sense. So who would have thought, with all the goofy gimmicks like the Rooster, Terry Taylor, but unfortunately for him, that wasn't too good. But for Kerry, it worked out. He was in a lot different spot as far as it was more of a rib on we all know Terry Taylor. Unfortunately, and I thought Terry Taylor was talented, but the Red Rooster not so much. I didn't like the gimmick anyways.
Yeah, I
But
love
that's for
that.
a whole nother podcast.
That's actually, man, you just gave me an idea for a theme podcast down the road here, and we'll put Terry
Oh
Taylor
boy.
right on the front of the cover. So you know where I'm going with that one. But I love the Mr. Perfect, Texas Tornado, definitely
Oh
a
yeah.
classic match. Kerry Von Erich with the Ultimate Warrior and the Road Warriors at a Survivor Series is just like a dream team, and it was
Oh,
cool.
that and great observations. Yeah, the great and I was going to say Ultimate Warrior. This was the Dingo Warrior in world
Right.
class, so he knew the Von Erichs. So they got to do it up with the in McMahon's company. That's a lot of things, people may not realize, like when Sting and Jim Hellwig, they were in Mid-South and Memphis before that, but Warrior, remember when he broke away from Sting and got him and Watts to agree, he ended up getting managed by Gary Hart. He was the Dingo Warrior for a little while.
Well, now that we've seen this movie, and let's go ahead and give your score. I want to know what you thought of this movie, of the Iron Claw.
Yeah, I thought it was very well done, and I'll give it at least 8, maybe 9 stars like you. I mean, it was close to a 10 as far as just the drama of the family with the wrestling. However you want to look at it, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I can only speak for me. I mean, like all of us, my preference that I actually liked it. Now, it was sad. Not saying I enjoyed the tragedy, but it comes with the territory. With these kind of films, you have to see it.
Cherry Bombs gives it a 10, and if I know anything about
Well,
Cherry, yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
no, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say, hey, I don't blame her though. A 10 could work too.
Yeah, if I know anything about Cherry Bomb's reviews, I've seen her reviews, and they're either the worst movie or the best movie ever, and she loved this movie. So 10 out of 10 from Cherry Bombs, a 9. What would you say? Maybe an
Awesome.
8.5 from Tyler then? 8.5 from you, maybe
Yeah,
in
or
that?
9.
Nine?
What was it? The critical rating that we used to get with Ebert and those guys.
Oh,
So I'm not
yeah.
on their level, but I'm trying to do my best. And and I'll try to finally do my research. Normally, I try to do my research and know how to say names. I'll do better next time. I'm having my moments, man. We're so excited doing this that it takes me a minute to go, oh, wait a minute, is that how you say it? I mean, I'll just be honest. I'm the same way, even though I love this stuff and should know. It's like, okay, I'm sure that's not the way. That's why I kind of pause just to get people because I'm the type of person. I'm a stickler though. If I miss that, I'm like, I've got to hit that again. So Tony
It's
ain't got to,
okay.
I ain't got to make the tag all the time. I can help him out.
I've talked to many wrestlers that say, fans come up to them all the time, like, what did you ever think about this match at SummerSlam 22? And they're like, look, I can't remember everything that happened at every point. And,
Well, and that's a good point. Yeah.
so 9 out of 10. I think is a great score for this movie. I was very happy, with the care and attention that they gave to such, I think, an important story in wrestling history. And now with there being rumors, I mean, obviously there's the Hogan movie, and that's kind of stuck in pre-production limbo right now. And with a rumor about the Guerreros, would there be another biopic, Tyler, that you would like to see from the professional world, wrestling world?
I would like to see if you're going to do the Von Erich family. I'd like to see one of the Hart family. I
Oh,
would
okay.
be interested to see how they could do because I think it could work the same way. With the Harts, with Brad Owen and all the siblings. I mean, think about how large that family was.
Wow, we've heard so many stories of the dungeon and everything. I think that's a movie. Wow, that wasn't even in my thought
It
process,
would
but
be
it should
actually
be.
scary. You Fritz, where I can't do the Stu Hart impersonation, but think of all the people like he's like, "Oh yeah, come to my dungeon where you could stretch out." It'd be very scary. I mean, literally, you would be scared having to go down there and him just punish you, and then hear everybody screaming, and it's like almost a horror movie down there. It's you could do a lot with that. Yeah.
So the Hart family for you, I think it's a fantastic pick. To me, I would love to see an
Oh, thank you.
Ultimate Warrior
Oh, that
biopic,
that's
just
good.
because of you hear so many crazy stories about the man, and him after professional wrestling and doing all these speeches and going to all these seminars, and just his thought process was so out there and so bizarre, and so many people had
Yeah.
problems with him. He wasn't very well received in the locker room, but why? Like, give us, I mean, I know there's that WWE DVD set that they did, which I think was kind of one sided in my personal opinion, as to make the Warrior look bad at the time. But I would like to see kind of like a real, like, dig deep, talk to Sting, talk to guys that were really personable with him, and really find out what really was in the mind, if you could, of Jim
What made him
Hellwig, the
tick?
Ultimate
Yeah.
Warrior. You know?
Yeah, because that's one of those stories where I'm like you. When I saw him, I didn't really look at work rate or like the Meltzer ratings. I just saw this guy with a great physique, had the face paint. He ran to the ring. I mean, no wonder he got tired later on, as you would hear. And his matches had to be short, but that's all they needed to be. Because, I mean, obviously he's not going to be this great technical wrestler. He was more of a powerhouse type guy with a couple clotheslines and a press slam. And there's always two sides of the story. I know a lot of people didn't like him because they felt like he didn't respect the wrestling business. I don't know about that. I can't speak on it. I know they can, but I'm with you. I'd love to see like a biography on the Ultimate Warrior in film style. It'd be very interesting.
Yeah. So, our overall consensus is we both enjoyed the movie. We both thought, they paid good attention. Are there any last things that you want to touch on, Tyler?
I think the only other thing is I liked how they mentioned how Fritz had a degree in music, something I didn't realize, and that his son Chris, that explains maybe why he wanted to pursue music, and though he wanted to follow in the wrestling, I think it was neat how they showed how the brothers supported him and snuck out of the house against their parents. Not saying you should do that, but it just shows the reality of how brothers will stick up for their sibling, and took him to the party, and no wonder it got wild. It's just those frat parties, man, and a lot of people wanted to be in bands too, not just athletes. They wanted to be rock stars, and I couldn't help but get that song. It was stuck in my head, the melody, and I couldn't tell you the words. It was just the melody of the song just got stuck in my head once I finished that movie. It was wild, but it was that's something else. I think just like you said, little details here and there were or unknown facts about even Fritz, knowing he was actually into music, not only the football and wrestling, but had that background was very was fascinating.
I also thought that was not only a great scene when they all sneak out of the house and head on over to the party so he can play, and the brothers and Kevin's girlfriend at the time really showing support for their brother. But I also think it's a good message too that parents, a lot of parents have these goals, or not goals, but like they have dreams for their children, but they're not necessarily their children's dreams, and to kind of let people explore their creativity, explore the things that they want to do. So I thought not only was it a good and fun scene, but I also thought that brought a good message as well.
It did, perfectly said. I can't add too much to what you just articulated, Tony. It was like I say, they had their purpose for him, but he wanted to pursue music. He had his dreams, and I thought that the playing of Rush as Tom Sawyer, because I'm such a big Rush fan, was cool. And seeing Carrie work out, and then they show the montage of Bruiser and Gino and all these stars. It was cool. And then we saw the guys that portray the Freebirds. Great casting. I'm like you. I mean, they did a great job. You can say what you want to about Flair. We've talked that and until we're blue in the face, I'm sure. But the way the Freebirds came off, they did a great job. The one guy could have done Terry Gordy. I mean, you really could see him. That's what I liked about it. So they did a great job. I'm not going to nitpick too much because I'm like you. I just want to enjoy it. I can always research and look at documentaries if I want to do that, and which we did. But yeah, there's just so much that I'm remembering now before we sign off here that it's kind of neat to bring up, or I'll kick myself because wait a minute, that happened. I should have mentioned it.
Yeah, we could probably do a 3-hour show about a 2-hour and 15 movie if we really try, but but I don't think we.
Yeah,
need
we
to.
want to be careful.
Yeah, we don't need to go down the rabbit hole too much, but overall, again, good respect to the Von Erich family. A great movie to watch anytime. Whether you're a wrestler, I mean, you're probably a wrestling fan if you're watching this. I'm 99% sure, but definitely go and check it out. I think it's definitely worth your time, worth your money to go and watch it. Whether you know a lot about the Von Erichs or you don't know much at all, I think you can dive right into this movie. I guess some advice would be to maybe go watch the documentary first or watch it later. I don't know, but I think the documentary kind of gives you a lot of good insight to the crazy world that is the Von Erichs. Yeah.
Yeah, and you get to hear like from Gary Hart about Ken Mantell if you want to know kind of the inside of how the inner workings were. I think it's fantastic for that too. I mean, they really go into how Gary Hart left at times. So I don't want to give away the documentary, but
Right.
to your point, I mean, good stuff.
Yeah, definitely, guys, go watch the documentary on Peacock on the WWE Network. It's definitely worth checking out. If you love this movie or you didn't like this movie, I think the documentary is still worth checking out. But guys,
Right.
in the comments, definitely leave us your thoughts on the movie The Iron Claw. We would love to hear them. Tyler, what cool stuff you got coming up?
Well, I got a lot of cool stuff, and you'll have to forgive me. I'm trying to get over a cold. So
yeah, your voice is you've been great all 52 minutes, and
yeah, and now all of a sudden it wants to do it. So pardon me.
Time to wrap it up. It is.
Yeah, wrap it up. Leave it to this point. But forgive me. But I've got Tyler's takedowns. That's been really is still going. I've also got, when I joined Tony, it's been great. He puts up with whatever elements I've got. And, just everything going on. I'd have to have a list. What can I say? I've been very fortunate and blessed. And all of a sudden, it was like I was turning into a horror movie. I mean, Halloween's over. I don't know what happened, but this cold is so weird. But anyways, I'm just a busy guy. So I'm very thankful, man. And thanks to you, Tony.
Absolutely. Now, as far as here on Tony and Entertainment, this Saturday we return to CCW, Bash at the Brew here in Hialeah, Florida. We got some really good interviews lined up for Saturday. We are pumped. We are excited. Who we're interviewing it? I'm not giving out spoilers anymore. You're going to have to come to the channel because it's going to be worth it. We got some good stuff coming up. And next Saturday, we are super pumped because January 13th here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, not only are we covering our first NWA show, doing some interviews, but there are 2 shows in one night, and you got the NWA running for about 3 hours. And then after that, a 2-hour show with NWA Cross CCW. So you've got the guys and girls of NWA squaring off against the guys and girls in CCW. 5-6 hours of wrestling next Saturday. 2 awesome promotions going back to back. I'm pumped. I'm excited. We've had like 2 weeks or 3 weeks away from live wrestling because of the holidays. I'm ready to get back to some live local wrestling again and bring back some live interviews. I'm pumped. I'm ready to go. And we got some more podcasts in the work. I think we came up with one idea tonight. You know,
I think
we're not going to crow about it. We're not going to crow about it, but you know, we're going to.
Yeah, don't want to give too much away, but I'm happy for you, Tony. All the events coming up, and yeah, it's just amazing. I'm doing impersonations. My voice will change sometimes. I'll forget stuff, so it's unbelievable. I mean, this guy's taking a risk with me. I'll tell you,
it's a risk I'm willing to take, Tyler. We love having you here on the show.
I hope so. Yes. He may lose viewers. They'll be. Where did you find this guy?
We find Tyler covering just the best in professional wrestling. That's where we find Tyler at.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, guys, if you like podcasts like this is our first movie review. And I got some other ideas coming in the future that I'd definitely like to do. And we're going to run it by Tyler. We're going to run it by maybe some more cast of characters that we've had here on the channel. And what Cherry Bombs wants to say, no, you are great, Tyler. See, she's in your corner.
Well,
there,
I
Tyler.
appreciate the kind words. Yeah. Thank you so much.
So yeah, lots of more cool stuff. We're just getting started here in 2024. We're January 3rd. We've got 2 podcasts on the channel already. Live interviews coming. It's going to be a great year for Toned In Entertainment, a great year for Tyler Peters, a great year for Tyler's Takedowns. Just lots of cool stuff coming in 2024. So Tyler, thanks again for making some time to talk about a wrestling movie. I know it's a real burden on you to do stuff like this.
No, it is a real burden. I've enjoyed it, Tony. Thank you. And you're very welcome, my friend. Always a good time.
Definitely. So guys, if you like podcasts like this, guys, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you can stay tuned in here to Toned In Entertainment for future videos. Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.